Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on this evening's podcast or episode. I've got a very good one tonight, so stay right where you at and we'll be right back.
Provided in this podcast is not intended to constitute legal advice. Instead, this podcast takes full responsibility for its own content shared. Music acknowledges and credits used in this podcast are the rights of the artist. Royalty-free music used with permission granted. This podcast may offer links to other sites, thereby enabling you to leave this site and go directly to the link site. This podcast is not responsible for the content of any link site. Such links are for the convenience of the user visiting this podcast. This podcast isn't responsible for loss or damages or misinformation provided from those links shared. All shared links resources have been validated by the site provider.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for coming back and joining in with me on another episode. You know, this is the podcast where you're always welcome, where we build one another up, share your opinions, your thoughts, ideas, beliefs, and your feelings, where you're never outcast for being who you are. Hello, everyone. Hi, evolved listeners. How are you? Thank you for joining and with me on another episode. You know, I love and enjoy being able to use my words to uplift and inspire others. That is my goal, to impact lives by bringing positivity. You just never know what your words or an encouraging message can do to someone who may have needed to be inspired by it. That's why I do this podcast. It has helped me with my voice and healed myself from trauma. You know, I want to say thank you to the lady who told me, you know, to use your voice to be your weapon when you've encountered trauma, pain, or whatever it may be. Your voice can bring healing. So that's why I do what I do, in hopes it can heal and impact lives. It's not about me, but about the impact of my message used to inspire others. You know, I hope this podcast does it. Well, are you ready for the topic this evening? In this episode, I wanted to discuss the topic of characteristics of a people pleaser and diagnosing the spiritual disorder of people pleasing. Shall we begin? I know in this world, it can be so hard to find your place in it, taking the advice of others and being afraid to give yourself the opportunity to be you and have your very own creativity. Well, in place of this, we can easily fall into becoming a people pleaser. We desire the approval of others, and then, you know, we can have a fear of being rejected. So what does approval addiction look like? Having fear of what man thinks rather than of what God thinks. You know, fear, I spoke about this in an earlier episode, but fear is a powerful emotion. It can turn us into panic mode very quickly. Once again, fear is a powerful emotion. It has the power for good as well as for evil. But when you have the right kind of fear, such as being God-fearing, and being afraid to sin because of the consequences of sinning causes fear, that's the right kind of fear versus the wrong kind. We can experience both, but we want the right kind. If we fear man's approval, then we will be devastated by his disapproval. So we must be careful if a people pleaser interacts with others. The mind of one becomes selfish. They let anxiety resides within them. You know, they get, you know, and then that there's fear. You know, they have fear. You know, the people pleaser starts asking questions like, you know, he's so caught up with it, you know, he get anxiety that he's asking, what do they think of me? What if I make a fool of myself? I don't want to be hurt again. If I share too much of myself, I'll be rejected. These are just a few of what a people pleaser can begin to think once fear has settled within. Let's take a look at what is a people pleaser. Well, one for certain is they're not a peacemaker. Rather, they're a peace lover. A peacemaker is willing to go through the discomfort of a conflict in hopes this brings peace to the situation, which most times peace not only is the absence of conflict, but is often the result of it. A peace lover will do almost anything to avoid conflict at all costs. I think this kind of person will avoid it. The goal of this individual is keeping the peace with fellow man, even to the point he will forfeit the peace of God that comes from standing up and suffering for the truth, which is the coward at heart, is what it's called. An approval junkie desires or desiring, they're desiring the praise of men above the praise of God. He will never admit he loves anything else more than God. But this one, we all can take a look into. We say we love God like this, but what other things will one do to please, man rather than God? Like substituting something in place of him, like your car, your house, your money, even your relationship. Just naming a few that we might say, yeah, we love him, but we will put a substitute in place of and not even realize that we did. I know I've said it and found myself doing the opposite of what I said. It's easy to say one thing and, then be doing another. I'm just being honest. That's why people pleasers are hypocrites. At heart, you're all you want to be, but then can be contaminated by impure desires. We all have done it, but this is what we do or have done. The people pleaser is concerned about the outwardly, which the goal is to draw attention to himself. He'll do that. That's what a people pleaser does. Both in a woman or a man, this can happen. Not even thinking how he can edify others with his words, rather than, worried about, his words in a favorable light. That's what he's mostly worried about. What will what I say be pleasing to God? Will it uplift? Will it be encouraging? Will my words bring, what will my words bring? A person who is a people pleaser won't think this way. The people pleaser focuses on his own selfishness and thinks of himself, right? This kind of individual is concerned with his own reputation. Their heart craves being held in high esteem by others, wanting to hear, their praise rather than how God will praise them. That's what kind of person that people pleaser is. The people pleaser's intent or pleaser intent is to gain approval. That is, an individual this person, that's a people pleaser, spends most of his time looking and well focused on interest, words, reflection, and even body language of people. They can even make themselves look and sound like who they're pleasing. They will study a person so hard that when passing a person on the street, they study their faces. They're looking for approval. That's what they do. They're looking for approval. Do I look okay? What is he or she thinking? Looking at facial expressions is really, this is really serious. It's serious how far one will go for approval. When this individual does try to meet the needs of others, this person does so, but not because he is trying to love, to give without expecting anything in return, but to enhance his or her own reputation or find favor in the eyes of those, one may call themselves loving. It's really interesting how this type of individual executes their ways of wanting approval. But then it eventually backfires. Another is, one is used to flattering with words. He will use words that will make others be fond of him. speak well of him, never to reveal flaws or any type of discomfort in him. This type of person is never flawed or wrong. This individual brings, words that those he is wanting to please, he has to bring, be good, make himself more than what he is, to be able to, keep him around them. So, but then you can see that if you're not one of these individuals, then it's the motivation of his fear that is bringing that ego on. That's why it's important to know who you are in Christ. If you're satisfied in him and knowing what he thinks of you, you wouldn't have to think outside the box. This kind of thinking won't steer you off into people pleasing. When we look to please anything or anyone other than God, we can be certain we will eventually hit a brick wall. It will backfire on us. I know it can be hard, but it's better to know this is the case if we do it any other way. People are human. They are not perfect. They make mistakes. They mislead. They get things all screwed up and will not take notice sometimes of what the result is, not until they see it happening to them. That not all people can be pleased, and not all people in your view, is your duty to please. If we know that and who we can, every day set our goal on pleasing, we can be less of people pleasing. So, which are you? Did you enjoy this topic? I know I did. Did you ever think to ask yourself who you are wanting to please? Have you tried so hard to be what others will approve of you to be? Or have you just said, you know what? I am pleased with who I know loves and accepts me no matter what I look like, no matter what flaws I have, or what it may be that I have done in life. I want to please who I know will accept me in my mess, even when I'm stressed. Jesus loves me, this I know. I'd like to thank you for joining in on this episode. If you have a topic to suggest or would like to be a guest, send me an email at evolvetopics@gmail.com. Well, before I leave, I want to leave you with an encouraging message, one that you may not think about when you're saying it or doing it, but it's the power of what ifs. How we use what if. When we use what if, we always, using it in terms of what if I'd have done that differently, or what if I have said that differently. We always looking at what if to be that way. But let's be a positive force in this nation, approaching the what ifs. So what if I don't make it? What if I had to have done this instead of that? What if I turn back? What if I get old? What if I don't make that cut? What if I don't get there? What if? Have you ever stopped to ask, what if I get the job? What if my best is good enough? What if he likes me? What if I am accepted? What if I am chosen? We can live every day focused on the negative of what if, but why not live on the positive side of what if? It doesn't always have to be negative when it's what if. What if I become a millionaire? What if I get a raise? What if I get the house? It's always a pretty good chance that our what ifs can be good if we choose to put the positive in them. Just stop thinking about the negative and focus on the positive. We always get the impression that we'll be let down before we rise above it. Not only will our attitude change, but what if can very well be what is. Isn't that inspiring? I want you to take that message, and when you get into that what if moment, I want you to think about or apply this message. It's very good. It's inspiring for me. I have to tell myself that when I'm in that what if moment, because I'm always thinking about, well, what if something good happens? What if you got the job? What if you got the raise? So you want to take this message, or I would like for you to take this message and be inspired